Hey guys, so today we're going to be talking a little bit more about the Constitution, more in detail. We're going to talk about what our government is like, how our government is organized a little bit more, and especially we're going to spend some time on the Bill of Rights, which is like the first 10 statements that are in the Constitution that are guaranteed to Americans. And we're also going to talk about what it means to be an American citizen and live in the United States. So first thing, let's talk a little bit about the ideas behind the Constitution and what our government is shaped to be. So because this document is public and is accessible to for everyone to see, it kind of has an expectation as an American that everyone in this country, whether you are just a regular citizen living here, or if you're a person in power and you serve as a government official, no matter who you are, if you are living in this country, you must obey the laws that the Constitution has written in them. And this idea is known as the rule of law. Okay. Because our government comes from the people, we are not ruled by our leaders. So we don't live in a society or in a country that is ruled by one specific person. So, for example, the president doesn't rule over all of us because technically we elect the people in power. This idea leads to something called popular sovereignty, and this is what our American government is based upon. So, popular sovereignty is when the people of a country have the power to make laws. So, that doesn't mean that, for example, me as an American citizen living here, that doesn't mean I can go to the president and say, I'm going to make a new law and everybody has to obey it. What that means is that because we choose our representatives, we are giving them our voice. So we are the people who we choose are usually people that we agree with, who have similar ideas to us, because then they are going to go into Congress and in the legislative branch and create laws. So because we choose who we want to represent us, and that person who's representing us then goes and makes laws, it's kind of like we are making those laws. Okay, I hope that makes sense. In the Constitution, it also calls for a limited government, and this goes back to the idea that we are not ruled by our leaders. Because in the Constitution, it mentions that the government can only act in certain areas. Okay. If we are not happy with their performance, the people can vote them out. Kind of like impeaching a president or choosing and selecting a different congressman, or even our mayor. But this also calls for when laws are no longer satisfying our majority's wishes. So if a law doesn't really make sense anymore because our society has changed a little bit, we have the power to change those laws. We can call our congressmen, our House of Representatives, and ask for them to push for a change in laws. This is really important because it protects the rights of us Americans, whether it's a personal right or a political right. And all of this is listed in the Constitution. One of the ways that the government has been given these limits of not having too much power is in the Bill of Rights. So remember that when the Constitution was being ratified, some states didn't want to go through with it unless there was a Bill of Rights. And so James Madison decided to write a Bill of Rights that guarantees certain liberties to all Americans, and that's when we come up with the Bill of Rights. So the Bill of Rights define what rights and liberties Americans have, whether it's security, equality, liberty, for example, freedom of speech, press, assembly, There are rights for people who are accused of a crime. All of this works to limit the government's power. That way, they don't have way too much power and they are not ruling over us, kind of like a dictator would in a different kind of country. And basically, the writers just wanted to make sure the American people would be treated justly and they wouldn't be discriminated against or just treated in a way that they didn't approve of. When the Bill of Rights was finally officially approved or ratified in 1791, these guarantees only applied to the national government. So only the president, only Congress, only the Supreme Court were supposed to obey these amendments, okay, or these articles. What that means is that the states didn't necessarily have to follow them. So just because the Bill of Rights or the Constitution said you are allowed freedom of, let's say, freedom of speech, okay, that means that the president or the Congress or Supreme Court can't punish you for expressing your opinion. But maybe if you lived back then in 1791, let's say you lived in Pennsylvania, but that idea wasn't approved or your opinion wasn't really approved of, then maybe you can get in trouble in your state. However, over the years, the Bill of Rights has been applied to ensure the rights of all Americans. So for the most part, all of our states now obey the Bill of Rights and as well as the entire national government. So I'm going to read to you the first 10 amendments or the first 10 articles in the Constitution, which are the Bill of Rights, and then they're kind of translated in easier language because if you notice back here in this picture, this is kind of what the Bill of Rights looks like, and it's all fancy schmancy with some big words and stuff. So I'm going to kind of translate them in some easier language for you to understand. So the First Amendment is probably the one that is the most known and the one that we associate the most with the Bill of Rights, and that's where we're guaranteed freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of assembly, and the right to protest. It's also where we have freedom of religion, and I think that's it. But what that technically means is, for example, you are free to express your opinion. You are free to get information from the media. You are free to assembly is like when you get into a group of people, and then when you protest is when you go against kind of what the laws are, or you protest your opinion on why you don't agree with something. And obviously freedom of religion is when you are allowed to practice whatever religion you want. The Second Amendment is the right to bear arms. So this guarantees the right for us to purchase guns and weapons to protect ourselves. The third one states that soldiers cannot take over a home during war without the homeowner's permission. So if you remember when we talked about the Quartering Act before the American Revolution and how the British soldiers would just kind of come into the colonists' homes and just live there for free, and you had to basically provide shelter and all of those resources for the soldiers, this Third Amendment protected the Americans from that because they didn't want to go through that again. The Fourth Amendment is protecting Americans from unreasonable and unlawful search and seizure of property. So that means the police or government officials can't just come into your home without a reason for just to look through your stuff. The Fifth Amendment allows all citizens due process and states that a person cannot force to serve as a witness against himself when accused of a crime. So sometimes maybe you've heard in TV shows or you've heard in conversation someone say, I plead the Fifth. And what that means is that they're pleading the Fifth Amendment, because this amendment means that you have the right to not kind of like incriminate yourself, to not make yourself a witness because you don't want to answer a question that might make you guilty or will get you in trouble, things like that. So it's kind of like you want to stay quiet because you don't want to hurt your chances of being found innocent in a trial. The Sixth Amendment is allowing Americans a speedy and public trial by a jury for those who are accused of a crime. So that means that they shouldn't be dragging out a trial for way long time just so that they can be in jail, or it's not a trial where you are not being found guilty of by just one random person. Okay, you have a jury, so a group of people. Number 7 is allowing a trial by jury to be held for certain civil disputes. So these are kind of like smaller cases in court, but you're also allowed to have a jury. The Eighth Amendment prevents those accused of suffering cruel and unusual punishment. So back in the old days, they would have some pretty harsh punishments. So this helped protect Americans from those unusual punishments, and we don't have things like a firing squad anymore, or like just like pretty bad punishments. So this is a good one. Number 9, the Ninth Amendment states that no one's constitutional rights should be used to infringe upon the rights of another citizen. So that means that your own rights should not be allowed to break the rights of somebody else. So let's say, for example, freedom of speech. Yes, you have freedom of speech, but you shouldn't be using that freedom of speech to take away the rights of somebody else. So let's say you don't like the color orange, but so you say, oh, everybody who likes the color orange can't have recess. Because that other person is allowed to like the color orange doesn't mean just because you don't like the color orange and you're using your right to express that and take away someone else's rights is okay. For number 10, the 10th Amendment provides that each state with powers that are not specifically assigned. So the states have specific powers, but they don't have to necessarily be the powers that the national government has. So this is kind of showing that the national government doesn't have all the power that the state that you live in can also have power too. Okay, so I hope I explained these in easy terms. But these are the rights. These are guaranteed to you as an American, okay? However, being an American citizen also comes with responsibilities and duties. So if you are an American citizen, there are a few things that you have to do. So for one, you have to obey the laws that are given to you if you live here, okay? You have to pay taxes, whether it's state tax, sales tax, all of those things. Tax season is in April, and a lot of adults who have jobs have to report their income to the government, and sometimes you pay taxes or sometimes you get money back if you're lucky. Another duty that you have as an American citizen is to defend your nation. So this kind of goes for example, boys or men 18 and older. Once you turn 18, you have to enroll in the draft. So if there is an emergency war and we need more soldiers, those men who are in the draft are chosen to go to war. And this is one of the ways that people are able to defend the nation, or joining the army and things like that. Another duty is to serve in court. So as annoying as it can be, sometimes when you are an adult, you are chosen for jury duty. And what you have to do is you have to go to a court, and if you are selected, you have to listen to a trial, and you are chosen to see whether the person is guilty or not based on all the evidence that they provide. And then lastly, something that you guys are all doing, one of your duties is to attend school. You have to go to school if you are an American citizen. Aside from these duties, there are also some responsibilities that we have to do as American citizens. And we have to do these in order for us to have a peaceful nation. It also prevents the government from breaking down because we are being responsible citizens. So the first one is we have to be informed, and we have to know what's going on in our society and in our country, and we have to go out and vote. And that is one of the ways that our voice is heard and how we express ourselves. It's also we're also responsible for participating in our community, maybe even joining government. And we have a responsibility to respect the rights and the property of others, the same way as we have to respect opinions and ways of life. Not always are we going to agree with people, but we have to at least respect them. Okay? So now there should be a Google Doc called Bill of Rights in this assignment. And after you're done watching the lecture, I want you to choose one of the amendments that we talked about in the Bill of Rights. So one of these, and you're going to describe it in your own words. So choose your favorite or choose one that's interesting to you. If you want to do some extra research and Google it or look up some information about it, you can to help you write out your paragraph. But I want you to describe it in your own words. You can also talk about what you like, what you don't like about it. And then lastly, I want you to come up with your own Bill of Rights amendment that you would add to our country. And remember that the Bill of Rights don't have to deal with the powers of the government. So it's not like, oh, my new amendment would be to choose a different president. It's not really anything about what the government is, but it has to do with addressing the needs we have as citizens. So what is another right that should be guaranteed to us as citizens? So you're going to answer all of those questions in a paragraph, at least 5 sentences. Yes, you can write more. Make sure it's submitted to the Google Doc. So again, once you click on it, it's going to be blank, and it's blank for you to type in it. So double tap, and then your keyboard should show up. And just type out your answer there and make sure to submit it. If you want to do it on a separate sheet of paper, take a picture of it. You can also attach the picture that you take onto Google Classroom. Okay? So mañana we will be talking about George Washington. Okay, so a little bit more having to do with the Constitution. It allowed for our country to have one leader, which is the President of the United States, and the first one would become George Washington. Okay, so I will see you later, and bye.